It all started with strange disappearances. It was subtle at first, people going missing without a trace. No signs of struggle. No explanations. Just gone. The police were baffled, theories came and went, but nothing ever seemed to add up. People chalked it up to running away, to personal problems, but the numbers kept growing. A neighbor's kid, a coworker, a distant cousin, one by one, they vanished. Then came the odd reports. In every place, there was something off in the air, something no one could quite explain. A buzzing sound, a faint hum, almost imperceptible but persistent. People shrugged it off. There were conspiracy theories, of course. Some said it was the government testing something, some said it was just bad weather. But there was always one thing in common: the missing people. The authorities had no answers. Local investigations turned up nothing. One by one, cities and towns seemed to be affected, and the disappearances were happening faster. Not just one or two, but whole families. Entire neighborhoods were being emptied overnight. As the world slowly began to feel the weight of these unexplained events, the oddest thing occurred. No one seemed to care. Sure, the media covered it, but there was no real urgency, no panic. People went about their daily routines. Governments issued statements about being vigilant, about not spreading fear. But why wasn't anyone really doing anything? Why wasn't there a sense of panic? As the tension quietly mounted, a group of small-time investigators, led by a man named Mark, began to put together the pieces. Mark wasn't a trained detective. He was just a regular guy with a curiosity that could never be satisfied. When his childhood friend disappeared, it triggered something inside him. He knew there was more to this than just runaway cases. Mark started to dig into the disappearances, piecing together small details from the reports. It wasn't just people who vanished. The same strange hum was often reported near the homes of the missing, a low vibration almost like something was on the verge of breaking. But it was never visible. That's when the theory began to form: what if the aliens weren't coming to invade Earth the way we imagined? What if they were already here, and we just didn't see them? The more Mark dug into the disappearances, the more he noticed oddities. Something was happening to the people who disappeared. They weren't leaving behind any signs of struggle, no evidence of a fight, no remains, not even any messages. Just an empty space where they once were. It was like they never existed at all. One evening, Mark received a strange message. It was from an anonymous source who claimed to have seen something beyond human understanding. The message was cryptic, but Mark's curiosity pushed him to meet the sender in person. They met in a quiet park after sunset, an eerie calm hanging in the air. The man who had sent the message wasn't who Mark expected. He looked ordinary, someone who might be a local mechanic or storekeeper, but the weight of his words was anything but ordinary. "I've seen them," the man said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "They don't look like anything we've ever imagined. But they're here. And they're taking us. All of us. Slowly. One by one." Mark listened carefully as the man explained how he had witnessed strange figures, tall, but human in shape, entering homes at night without making a sound. They didn't walk through doors, they didn't need to. They just appeared. Like shadows, like whispers of the wind. And they took people without anyone noticing. They didn't harm them. They didn't leave evidence. They simply disappeared. Mark didn't know what to believe. But something about the man's tone felt genuine, as if he had seen something that shook him to his core. The man handed Mark a small device, a strange metal object. "This is proof," he said. "Use it wisely. You'll see what I mean." The device was unlike anything Mark had ever seen before. It hummed with energy, almost like it was alive. When Mark held it, the humming intensified. It was like the world around him began to shift, as if the very fabric of reality was bending. Mark's heart raced. He had to know more. He had to find out what was happening to these people. To everyone. The next few days were a blur as Mark tried to make sense of the device and its strange powers. It didn't take long for him to realize that the device wasn't just some artifact, it was a tool that could reveal what the human eye couldn't see. It could expose what was hidden in plain sight. Mark began to notice something he hadn't before. There were glitches, moments where the world seemed to distort, like ripples on water. People were walking through life as if nothing was wrong, but Mark could see the cracks. He began to notice the subtle shifts, the way certain people never seemed to quite fit in, as if they were slightly off. Not human. That's when he saw it. A man in the street, talking to a group of strangers. He looked normal enough, but when Mark activated the device, the man's true form was revealed. It wasn't a man at all. He was tall, his skin shimmering with an unnatural glow, and his eyes, dark, empty pits, stared back at Mark. Mark stumbled back in shock, his mind racing. This wasn't just a few missing people. It was an invasion. But not an invasion of ships or weapons. It was an invasion of minds, of bodies. They were taking over, one by one, and no one had a clue. Mark had no choice but to go public with what he had discovered. But when he tried to reach out to the media, he was met with resistance. Every phone call, every email, was blocked. His messages were intercepted. It was clear now, whoever was behind this didn't want the truth to get out. In a desperate move, Mark turned to the underground network he had been warned about, people who had been aware of the invasion for years but couldn't prove it. They were small groups, scattered, living in the shadows, doing their best to fight back against an enemy they couldn't see. But even they didn't fully understand what was happening. One night, Mark and his small team of allies took matters into their own hands. Armed with the device, they infiltrated one of the aliens' hidden headquarters, located deep underground. They discovered something horrifying. These beings had already infiltrated major governments, corporations, and key positions of power across the world. Their reach was far greater than Mark could have ever imagined. The final confrontation took place in an abandoned facility. The truth was out now, and Mark had the evidence to prove it. As he stood in front of the beings who had been manipulating humanity from the shadows, he realized something chilling: the invasion was not about Earth's destruction. It was about humanity's erasure. They had already won. But Mark wasn't ready to give up. With the device in hand, he triggered a powerful surge of energy, revealing the true nature of these invaders. For the first time, the world could see them. People all over the planet looked up and saw the aliens for what they truly were. And for the first time, they fought back. The story ended with humanity finally realizing that the real battle wasn't against spaceships or lasers. It was against the quiet, unseen forces that had been shaping their world for centuries. And while the fight wasn't over, the first step had been taken, the truth had been exposed. The story touches on themes of deception, manipulation, and the consequences of being unaware of the forces that shape our lives. It explores the ethical dilemma of controlling information and the power of knowledge in a world where the truth is often hidden. It raises questions about trust, the responsibility of those in power, and the importance of questioning the status quo to prevent exploitation and abuse of power. The ethical lesson here is that awareness and vigilance are crucial in protecting our freedom and understanding the hidden forces that affect our lives.